September 14th, 1945. Hibiya Park, Tokyo. The sun hangs low over the shattered capital, its light filtering through a haze of dust and smoke that still clings to the air. Rows of women in tattered khaki uniforms stand in silence, their once crisp skirts frayed at the hems, insignia dulled by months of grime. A cool autumn breeze carries the scent of charred wood and distant sea salt from Yokohama Bay. Former Lieutenant Keiko Tanaka, 32, clutches a small bundle wrapped in faded silk, her only civilian possession. Her boots, cracked and resoled with cardboard, sink slightly into the soft earth. Around her, hundreds of others wait. Nurses from the Imperial Army Medical Corps, typists from the Women's Volunteer Service, radio operators who once relayed orders from Rabaul to Manila. Their faces are gaunt, eyes hollowed by rationed rice and sleepless nights. No one speaks. The only sound is the rustle of leaves and the occasional cough echoing down the line. Across the park, a convoy of olive-drab trucks rolls to a stop. American women in crisp, wacky uniforms step down, their arms laden with parcels. The Japanese officers stiffen, pride wars with hunger. Then the first bundle is handed over, a simple cotton dress, still folded, still new. A single tear traces the cheek of a captain who has not cried since Singapore fell. The war that had consumed Japan for 14 years began to unravel in the summer of 1945. By July, the Imperial Navy lay at the bottom of the Pacific, its carrier fleets reduced to burning hulks off Leyte and Okinawa. The home islands braced for invasion. In Tokyo, air raid sirens had become as routine as temple bells. Women had been integral to the war machine since 1937. The Greater Japan National Defense Women's Association mobilized 2.3 million by 1944, but the military needed more than volunteers. In August 1943, the Imperial Army created the Women's Volunteer Corps, drafting unmarried women aged 17 to 40 for factory work, airfield construction, and clerical duties. By early 1945, 187,000 served in uniform. Nurses in field hospitals from Burma to Saipan, switchboard operators in fortified bunkers, cartographers plotting kamikaze routes, officers like Lieutenant Tanaka trained at the Army's Nakano School Annex in Tokyo, learning encryption, logistics, and battlefield triage. They wore the same rising sun collar tabs as men, carried sidearms, and commanded respect in a society that still expected daughters to bow. Their pay, 80 yen monthly, was half a male lieutenant's, yet they drilled at dawn and slept in unheated barracks. Rationing tightened. A nurse in Manila received 1,800 calories daily. By March 1945, Tokyo allotments fell to 1:100. Silk uniforms gave way to coarse cotton, then to patched remnants. Leather boots were replaced with geta clogs, stuffed with newspaper. Still they marched. Propaganda posters showed smiling women in steel helmets. We serve so our brothers may fight. On mainland Japan, 47,000 women staffed coastal anti-aircraft batteries, feeding 75mm shells into guns that never fired at B-29s streaking overhead at 30,000 feet. In the final weeks, teenage girls from the Himeyori Student Nurse Corps on Okinawa treated amputees in caves lit by kerosene lamps, emerging only to bury the dead. August 15, 1945. Emperor Hirohito's voice crackled over shortwave radios at noon. The Gyokuan Hoso broadcast lasted 4 minutes and 20 seconds. For the first time, civilians heard their sovereign speak. The words were archaic, veiled. Endure the unendurable. In barracks and hospitals, women froze mid-task. A typist in Hiroshima dropped her ink brush. A surgeon in Kobe laid down her scalpel. Surrender orders reached field units within hours. On September 2nd, aboard USS Missouri in Tokyo Bay, Foreign Minister Mamoru Shigemitsu signed the instrument of capitulation at 9:04 a.m. General Douglas MacArthur's pen scratched across parchment. 11 minutes later, the war ended. Occupation forces landed at Atsugi Airfield on August 28th. The U.S. 8th Army, 300,000 strong, rolled north from Yokohama under Lieutenant General Robert L. Eichelberger. Advance parties of the Women's Army Corps, a pound 200 officers and enlisted, arrived with the 11th Airborne Division. Their orders: administer relief, demobilize enemy personnel, and prevent disease in a nation of 72 million on the edge of famine. Tokyo was ash. 51% of the urban core had burned in the March 9–10 fire raids. Water mains lay ruptured. 1.2 million homeless slept in subway tunnels. Rice stocks stood at 18 days' supply. Typhus cases spiked in September. General Headquarters, GHQ, established demobilization centers at Hibiya Park, Yokohama's Negishi Racetrack, and the old Meiji Stadium. Japanese officers surrendered sidearms at numbered tables. Women turned in rank pins, logbooks, and medical kits. Each received a mimeographed Form 27D, certification of honorable discharge from Imperial forces. By September 10th, 42,000 female personnel had registered in the Kanto Plain alone. They carried no luggage, only what fit in a furoshiki cloth. American trucks idled nearby, engines ticking in the heat. Red Cross nurses in starched caps prepared stations with iodine, delousing powder, and crates marked civilian clothing, female, assorted, human angle. The weight of uniforms, Lieutenant Tanaka's khaki jacket, had once fit like armor. Tailored in 1942 at the Takashimaya Depot in Osaka, it carried the scent of new wool and camphor. 3 years later, the same jacket hung from her shoulders like a shroud. She had lost 23 pounds since January, her collarbones sharp beneath the frayed collar. Across the line, Captain Aiko Yamamoto, 35, former chief nurse at the 2nd Tokyo Army Hospital, pressed a cracked photograph against her chest. It showed her husband, a major, last seen boarding a transport for New Guinea in 1943. The edges were worn soft from nightly handling. She had not heard from him since the fall of Saipan. Private First Class Hana Mori, 19, had enlisted straight from girls' school in 1944. Her unit built revetments at Tateyama Naval Air Base. She still flinched at the drone of aircraft, even when the sound was only cicadas. Her hands trembled as she folded her puttees, cotton strips wrapped tight to keep out sand fleas. These women had never fired a shot in anger, yet they carried the war in their bodies. Malnutrition stunted menstruation for 68% of female personnel surveyed by GHQ medical teams. Beriberi swollen ankles, night blindness from vitamin A deficiency, scabies from shared blankets. They stood not as conquerors or victims, but as survivors of a system that had demanded everything and returned nothing. Their tears, when they came, were not for defeat alone, but for the sudden, terrifying freedom of having no orders left to follow. Tactical angle. The mechanics of mercy demobilization was a campaign in reverse. GHQ planners mapped it like an invasion. Phase 1, disarmament. Phase 2, delousing. Phase 3, reclothing. By September 12, 1945, the 42nd Quartermaster Company had converted Hibiya Park's Imperial Plaza into a grid of canvas tents. Each station processed 400 women per hour. American wax ran the line with military precision. At Table A, a sergeant collected rank insignia in numbered trays. Table B issued DDT powder shaken from perforated cans. Table C distributed soap. Ivory bars stamped U.S. Army. Table D held the clothing crates. Sizes were estimated by eye: small, medium, large. No fittings. The garments came from stateside donations. Church groups in Ohio packed cotton house dresses in shades of faded blue and rose. A Kansas City Elks Lodge sent wool skirts. Labels read Sears, Roebuck & Co. or September 14, 1945, 14:37 hours. Hibiya Park processing line. The queue inches forward under a sky the color of tarnished steel. Lieutenant Tanaka reaches the head of Section C. A WAC corporal, name tape reads PFC Ruth Kowalski, Chicago, looks up from her clipboard. Kowalski is 24, freckled, her sleeves rolled to the elbow. She has been on duty since '05 Simone. processing 1,140 women without a break. Tanaka's discharge form is stamped in red ink. Class 2. Officer, non-combatant. Kowalski tears a carbon copy, hands it back. No words. Tanaka folds the paper into a square, small enough to fit inside her sleeve. Next station, clothing issue. Sergeant Evelyn Moreau, Red Cross, stands behind a waist-high stack of crates. She lifts the lid on bale 47G. Inside, tissue paper, parts to reveal a navy blue cotton dress, size medium, mother-of-pearl buttons still shiny. It was sewn in a Cleveland factory in June, earmarked for Japanese civilian relief before VJ Day. Moreau holds the dress against Tanaka's frame. The hem falls just below the knee. Modest, practical. Tanaka's fingers brush the fabric. It is softer than anything she has touched since 1941. Behind her, Captain Yamamoto steps up. Moreau selects a charcoal skirt and white blouse, size large. Yamamoto's hands shake as she accepts the bundle. The blouse smells faintly of mothballs and American starch. Private Mori, barely 5 feet tall, receives a child-size pinafore in buttercup yellow. She stares at the bright color, as if it might vanish. The line halts. A Japanese major, former commander of the 3rd Medical Depot, refuses to surrender her sword knot, a braided silk cord signifying rank. She clutches it to her chest. 2 military policemen start forward. Colonel Halloran intervenes, voice low. "Let her keep the cord. Give her the clothes." The major's shoulders sag. She ties the knot around the parcel like a ribbon. 52 hours. The tears begin. Lieutenant Tanaka steps behind a canvas modesty screen, 3 poles, 1 khaki sheet. She unbuttons the khaki jacket for the first time in public since 1942. The rising sun buttons clink into a tin bowl. She folds the jacket. With military creases, places it on a pile destined for incineration. The new dress slides over her head. The cotton is cool against skin that has known only rough wool for 4 years. She smooths the skirt with both palms. For a moment, she stands motionless, eyes closed, breathing in the faint scent of American soap embedded in the weave. Outside the screen, Captain Yamamoto has already changed. The white blouse glows against her sunburned neck. She lifts the hem to wipe her eyes, then catches herself. Old habit from field hospitals, where sleeves served as bandages. A sob escapes, muffled against the fabric. Private Mori clutches the yellow pinafore to her chest and sinks to her knees in the grass. Tears fall onto the bright cloth, darkening it in small circles. A WAC nurse kneels beside her, offers a handkerchief embroidered with tiny red crosses. Mori takes it wordlessly. The line ripples. One woman, then another, begins to cry, not the loud keening of grief, but the quiet, involuntary release of muscles held rigid for years. PFC. Kowalski looks away, blinks hard, keeps stamping forms. Sergeant Moreau's voice cracks as she calls the next number. At 15:06, the major with the sword knot emerges. The charcoal skirt is too long. She has rolled the waistband twice. She bows, not the 90-degree military salute, but a shallow, almost imperceptible nod toward Colonel Halloran. Halloran returns a crisp salute, palm out. The major's lips tremble. She presses the knot to her heart, then tucks it into the blouse pocket. By 15:30, 312 women have passed through the clothing station. The pile of discarded uniforms grows into a small khaki hill. A gentle rain begins, soft as mist. The new dresses darken at the shoulders. No one moves to seek cover. September 15, 1945. Dawn over Hibiya Park. The khaki hill is gone. 2 bulldozers push the uniforms into a pit at the park's edge. Kerosene is poured, a match tossed. Flames rise orange against the gray morning, consuming wool, cotton, and the last traces of imperial rank. Smoke drifts east toward the Imperial Palace moat. Lieutenant Tanaka walks south on the Ginza, the navy dress swishing against her calves. The city is quiet. No trams, no vendors. She passes a shattered department store, Mannequins lie headless in the rubble. In her pocket, the discharge form and 200 yen in occupation scrip, enough for 3 days' rice. Captain Yamamoto boards a repatriation train at Ueno Station bound for Niigata. The charcoal skirt is already creased from sitting. She shares a wooden bench with 5 other former nurses. No one speaks of the war. They speak of persimmons, of snow on the Japan Sea. Private Mori is assigned to a GHQ typing pool in the Daiichi building. The yellow pinafore is too bright for office work. She is issued a gray smock instead. She learns to operate an Underwood typewriter, fingers flying over keys that click like distant machine guns. By September 30th, 91,000 female personnel have been processed in the Kanto region. Typhus cases drop 47% after delousing. Red Cross records show 28,400 dresses distributed, October 1945. The occupation settles. General MacArthur's non-fraternization order lasts exactly 6 weeks. By mid-October, WAC officers share tea with Japanese Red Cross counterparts in the former Mitsui Club. Conversation is halting, English phrases learned from phrasebooks, Japanese honorifics softened by necessity. They discuss powdered milk, not politics. The clothing pipeline expands. Liberty ships unload at Kobe and Nagasaki. By November, 1.2 million garments reach Honshu. Surplus Army nurse uniforms, olive drab, size petite, are cut down into children's coats in Osaka sewing co-ops run by demobilized women. Lieutenant Tanaka finds work as a translator for the Civil Censorship Detachment. Her navy dress is replaced by a second-hand kimono, then by a tailored suit purchased with yen earned reading soldiers' letters home. She never wears khaki again. Captain Yamamoto opens a midwife clinic in her village. The white blouse becomes her operating coat, laundered weekly in a copper pot over a charcoal brazier. She delivers 142 babies in the first year of peace. Private Mori marries a GHQ clerk in 1947. Her wedding dress is made from parachute silk traded on the black market. The yellow pinafore is folded into a cedar chest, kept for a daughter who will never know hunger. GHQ demobilization ends formally on December 31st, 1945. Total female personnel released 478,000. 0 re-enlistments. The Women's Volunteer Corps is dissolved by imperial edict. Its records are sealed in steel cabinets at the Old War Ministry, later bulldozed for a parking lot. 600 skirts, 41,000 pairs of cotton stockings. November 1945. A quiet street in Tokyo. The burned-out shell of a tram lies on its side, weeds already pushing through cracked windows. A woman in a faded navy dress pauses to adjust her gaita. The cotton hem brushes her ankles. Clean, whole, unremarkable. She carries a paper parcel. 2 sweet potatoes? A luxury. No bugles sound. No banners fly. The empire that demanded her youth has dissolved into ash and paperwork. Yet, in the simple act of dressing each morning, she reclaims a measure of self. The cloth is not silk or victory. It is merely cloth. But it is hers. Across the Pacific, in a Cleveland attic, a seamstress who packed bale 47 to G will never know the lieutenant's name. In Chicago, PFC Kowalski will forget the face that cried behind the canvas screen. Their threads crossed for one afternoon, then parted. War ends not with treaties alone, but in small, wordless mercies. A dress handed over, a tear wiped away, a uniform burned to keep the past from rising again. In the long ledger of the 20th century, this moment occupies no column, yet it lingers, an unspoken covenant between women who once stood on opposite sides of history, bound at last by the common need to begin again.